Today's video is going to be slightly different today. I'm going to write some Python code, or actually share some Python code that I've already written previously to pull data from the FBref website for football/soccer visualization. So if you're interested in doing any visualizations at a later date, this will give you a good starting point to actually start creating. So let's get on with it and I can get going. So as I said, I'm going to share code that I've already written to save time. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to need to import the necessary libraries that we need to be able to run and manipulate the code. The first line we are going to pull in is from undecode. Import undecode, and this will allow us to use accented characters. As you'll see when the data gets pulled in, a lot of the player and team characters have accents over them, and when we're creating visuals later on, if we don't have those accents on our keyboard, or we copy and paste from a website where the name doesn't have those, it won't read the data. So we'll work with that later on. Okay, the next line is going to be pandas. Pandas will allow us to manipulate and analyze the data. Next one we are going to use is NumPy. Again, work with numerical operations and arrays. And then the next one is, actually two, is going to allow us to pull in the data from the website. So we will use the import requests, and that will allow us to make requests to websites to pull in the data. And then we will from IO import string IO, and again this allows us to change and manipulate some of the code when it comes in. So we will quickly just run that code. Next we will go to the website. So the website that we go to is FBref. What we're going to do though is we're going to look at the player stats, and we're going to look at the goal and shot creation. So we will click onto here. So this is where we will get the website data from. So if we go back to the code, you can see that URL is here. That's where we're going to pull the data from. The next piece of code is going to create a variable called HTML content. The request is going to get the data from the URL, which is here. So it's going to pull in from this URL, and then it's going to replace any of the code that it sees with this in, and it's going to replace it with the code that's within here. Again, that's just helping us tidy up the data and allow us to use it more freely. And lastly, in this section, we are going to create a data frame. A data frame, we call that df. So we're going to use pandas. So PD, as you can see up here on this line, when we imported pandas, we called it PD. So pandas is going to read HTML, and it's going to allow us using that string IO. It's going to read the HTML content, and remember here is the variable with all the code and data in. We created it previously, so we will run that. Now in the background it's pulling that data in. So now we can look at the data and the data from the old page. So I'm going to click just DF for now. And as you see here, pulling it in, there's 2006 rows and 26 columns. If we go back to here, you'll see there's a number of tables. There's one up here where you can go break down into particular leagues, and then you got the player and shot creation in here. So what we need to do next is we are going to just have a look at the length of the data frame. So we're going to copy, and if you type length and then data frame in parentheses, again this is the data frame, we're going to hit shift and enter, and it tells us there's two data frames on this page, and that is, as we saw here, this is one data frame, and this is the one we want to work with, the second one here. The way data frames work, the first one on the page is always 0, the second one is 1. So this is data frame 1 here, this is data frame 0. So if we want to go into the data and look at data frame 1, we hit df square brackets 1 and then close the brackets. Again, you can hit shift and enter, or you can hit the run cell button up here. So now, as you can see, we have all the players. And if you look at this Milan Duric at the bottom, you'll see over the letter C, we have the accent. And I say that's what we're going to remove later on. But this is the data we are pulling in from here. Next thing we're going to do, as you can see across the top, we have the column names, but we have another layer above them. And we need to get rid of that, because that is going to make it difficult to be able to access the individual columns, because these columns, as you read them now, are GCA, GCA or GCA, GCA 90. We need to get rid of this top row. So what we are going to do is we're going to drop the level on the columns. So in here we have data frame 1, which we have already stated that this is dot columns. So we're pulling all the columns in. We are going to say we are going to drop the level 0. And as I told you before, with data frames and such, they start at level 0. So this header would be basically level 0. This one here would be level 1. So we want to drop level 0. So we run this code, and then we will look at df1, and as you can see, the top level is now gone. So we can now work with this and move forward. So what we're doing here is we're just going to change the name of the data frame, but it also allows this data frame to exist, because if we changed any, like deleted columns or rows from data frame 1, they would disappear for everything. We don't want to do that, so we want to pull them into another data frame so we can manipulate that data as needed. So we'll run that, and then we will look at data frame data. Let's type this in, dot head, and this will allow us to look at the top 5 rows within that data. So again, top 5 rows in the new data frame. Awesome. What you don't see in the data here is there are, when we pulled in the data from here, let me show you here, see if I can show you. See these additional column headers, but they're in rows. So those are in the data I have here, and I need to remove them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a particular word in these rows and isolate them, and I isolate the word age. So I'm going to focus in on that here, and I'm going to look for how many multiples of that appear in the data. So again, we'll run, and as you can see, there's a lot of them. It's showing you basically their data, but they are headers that we need to remove. So what we are going to do, we'll see how many exactly there are. We'll run this, and there's 92 of them, and we need to get rid of all of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another data frame creation equals data frame data is going to drop the data frame data, and this temporary sort of table here of rows, it's going to drop those. It's going to drop them from the data. So we do that. And now we're just going to look at the shape of the data frame that we have just created. Now we have 2,314 rows. As you can see, previously we had 2,406, so now we've taken all that out. We don't need it. It would mess up the data, so it's gone. So this is just looking at the shape now. We still have the 26 column, but we've deleted those unnecessary 92 rows that were messing up the data. Now we're just going to look at the column names within there. So we will do that. We'll run this. And this shows also all the column headers. So ranking, player, nation, position, squad, etc., etc. So these are all the headers of the rows across here. Now there's a problem with the data. We have numerical data in here, as you can see, but the data frame sees them as a text column. So we have to change them to a decimal, which in Python is classed as a float type. So what we need to do, I'm going to paste this all in, but these are the columns we need to change. So df creation column 90s equals df creation column 90 as type is what allows us to change the type, and we are changing it to a float. Again, a numerical and no longer a string text type of data point. So we will run that. So now they are all changed. Now let's look back at the data here. I want to show you something. Because I've deleted this top header here, you can see now some of the columns are going to have the same name. Take on, there, sh, here. So if we want to look at those columns within our data, within here, we need to give them a unique name, because otherwise, if we don't, then it's always going to look at the first one it finds. So what we're going to do, we're going to write some code that is going to rename any duplicate columns, but not the first. So count equals 1 for column in the df creation columns, which are these columns here. If column equals pass live, so columns append, we are going to add to the column name, which is pass live. We're going to underscore and then a count. So the count is 1. What will happen now? Count, add 1. So this count, the next time it goes through, would equal 2. So if it came to another pass live column, it would be pass live underscore 2, and so on. So we would run that. So we have done that. So now if we pull in this again, hopefully we no longer have duplicate name. So in here you'll see to underscore 1 underscore 2 sh underscore 2, and so on. So that now gives us unique header names. Now within this data, you can toggle here, and it'll change the data into per 90 minutes. If you toggle it back, it just shows you what the rounded number. I'm going to change it into per 90 in my code. So this will turn each of those columns into per per 90. So what it's saying here is the df creation SCA column equals the df creation SCA column divided by 90s, and 90s is the column here, which tells you how many games the player has made. So that is going to change the way the data is going to look, because I want my data per 90. So I'll hit run, and now we're just going to look at it all again. And as you can see, it is per 90. Once I've completed this for the game creation, there are a lot more stats you can find, pass types, and so forth. In a later tutorial, I'm going to show you how to pull these data tables together into one file. But in preparation of that, I need to add a primary column that I can pull data in for a particular player. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a column which is unique to the player and his team. So what I'm going to do is df creation, and this is the name of the column I'm going to create, equals df creation player plus df creation squad. So that's going to grab his name, grab his team, pull them together, and create a new column. So we will do that. Run. We scroll all the way over to the right. You will now see Max Aaron's Bournemouth, where it has pulled his name and his squad together. So again, I'm not using that so much now. I will use it later when I'm working, pulling tables together within code. The next two pieces of code, we're going to work with those accents and get rid of them. And as you see here, let's say Saint Etienne as an accent. So that particular code here, this one's going to remove them from the player, but this one here will remove them from the squad. When we do that, so now any accents above players, let's run this again, copy. And now if you look here, Saint Etienne up here, it's got an accent over the E. It is no longer there here, it has been removed. Just for ease of use later on. None of the players have it there. So that's why I pulled it at the very top, decode the library. Now the last thing we're going to do now is we are going to save this data into a Excel file. So we're going to use the command df creation, which is the data frame we're working with, to_Excel, and this is where we're going to place it. So we're going to place it, for me it's on my D drive, databases, Excel, documents. I'm going to call it FBref creations.excel file. Index false, keep it as that for now. We will run it. We will now have an Excel file saved with that data that we can manipulate and use later on to create visuals. This is my first video on Python coding. I'm no expert. I'm sure there's people out there who are going to do this better than I can. I'm probably at a level where I'm dangerous enough to do stuff. I'm not an expert enough to know everything. So I certainly share what I have, what I don't know, and what I need. And I will go out and watch others, read stuff, use ChatGPT when needed. AI is a good resource when you're stuck at something, but this is something I've created over the last couple of years. I thought it would be useful for those who are starting out and need to get free data, because data in many other places comes at a cost. So this is a way for you to pull free data. I will be making more visuals along the way. I encourage you to now take this code, try it for yourself, and then go to, again, these other data frames here. Again, go to player stats, standard stats, and do the same for all of these tables, because the next video I'm going to make, I'm probably going to show you how to pull all of these tables together into one file, how to delete columns that duplicate, because there are duplicate datas across the data frames, so we don't need duplicates in there. And also I will show you how to change these, because if you look at my data, they come in like this. You know, I want them to say France, Ireland, whatever, and not look like that. So I'll show you how to do that in the next video. So I appreciate your time. If you learned anything from this, I'd appreciate if you shared the video, liked the video. I would appreciate any sorts of comments, positive or constructive. I'm looking in ways to help others, and if others can help me along the way, I will certainly appreciate it. Again, I hope you learned something from this, and I hope you have a good day. Bye for now.